You pick up your phone, scroll through hundreds of contacts, and then it hits you cold, precise, undeniable. No one is coming to save you. No one truly understands the fire consuming you from within. No one is willing to bleed, to sacrifice, for the vision you're obsessed with. And if you collapse tomorrow, not a single one of those friends will step forward to take the derb for you. Society looks at a man with few allies, a man who withdraws, and instantly brands him a failure, an anomaly, a social defect. They programmed you early. Success means belonging to the herd, being validated by the crowd, owning a vast network of connections. But what if I told you your isolation is not a flaw? What if I told you that empty space surrounding you is actually an evolutionary defense mechanism? There is a ruthless law in biology known as the apex paradox. The law is brutally simple. The weak move in herds, but predators move alone. Sheep need the crowd to camouflage their fragility. But the tiger? It doesn't need anyone to guard its back. Today's video is not for the fragile mind seeking comfort in abandonment. This is a blueprint of dark psychology, of Machiavellian philosophy, engineered for the architects of power who found themselves stranded in a field of sheep. I will dissect it for you. 5 psychological anomalies that make you impossible to integrate. Why the state of zero support is your ultimate weapon, and how you will weaponize isolation and turn it into an empire. If silence terrifies you, go back to the noise. But if you're ready to claim the throne of the lone predator, stay. The first law of powerful isolation. You don't lack social skills. You're infected with a condition of the gifted. Hyperacute pattern recognition. Look at how the herd communicates. They consume surface-level words. I support you. We're brothers. I'm happy for your success. And they swallow it whole, without resistance, because it makes them feel safe. But your mind doesn't operate like that. You don't hear words, you read data. Psychology calls this thin slicing. When someone praises you, but the corners of their eyes don't move, you detect the envy boiling underneath. When someone agrees with you, but their tone shifts a fraction, you smell betrayal in the air. You see through it, the shadow behind the mask. For the average person, a party, a gathering, is an exchange of pleasant energy. For you, it's a sensory overload of corrupted signals. You sit there, watching people pretend to care about things they feel nothing for, hiding their nature, just to climb an invisible social ladder. It feels like a broken theater, where every actor forgot their lines, and you are the only one who refuses to read the script of lies. This leads to a biological response. Intolerance for social entropy. Because most conversations out there are noise. What's the weather like? Did you watch the game? My boss is terrible. Just recycled fragments of dead information. Individuals with high intelligence and high openness experience a dopamine drain and a cortisol spike when forced into shallow conversations. For you, small talk isn't politeness, it's theft. It steals your time. It hijacks your cognitive energy. You want to speak about manipulation strategy, about the future of humanity, about the meaning of death, about how to bend reality itself. And when you bring those topics into the crowd, what happens? Silence. Uneasy glances. They label you. too intense, too negative, a disruptor. So now, you face a fork in the road. Either you perform a frontal lobotomy on yourself, pretend to be dull, pretend to be entertained by garbage, just to earn shallow connections. Or you choose silence. The herd chooses to be surrounded by fools, so they never have to confront themselves. But you choose stillness. You are not lonely. You are simply incapable of digesting lies. And you are willing to pay the price with isolation to preserve the integrity of your mind. Right now, leave a line beneath this video. I refuse to perform in the theater of sheep. Now, let's dissect the greatest fear embedded in human psychology. Zero support. When you carry a massive goal, an obsessive ambition, your instinct is to search for allies. You want your parents to feel proud. You want your friends to applaud. You want someone, anyone, to say, "You're going to make it." And when no one says it, you collapse. Niccolo Machiavelli saw this weakness clearly and smirked at it. In The Prince, he made it ruthless. A wise ruler must rely only on what is within his control, never on what rests in the hands of others. Now look deeper into the nature of support. When someone helps you, invests in you, or even just cheers for you with intensity, you think it's love? No. It's a psychological debt. You are signing a contract, an invisible exchange of power. The moment they give you support, they gain the right to withdraw it whenever they choose, just to watch you fall. They own a piece of your dream. A safety net is also a web. It catches you when you fall, but it also binds you, preventing you from rising beyond its limits. So if you are in a state of zero support, with no one backing you, don't cry. Realize this. This is the ultimate privilege. If no one helps you climb the mountain, no one has the right to drag you down. If you build your kingdom in the dark, you own 100% of the throne. Now it's time to activate the most dangerous weapon of dark psychology. The ghost phase. The herd fails because they talk before they act. They get an idea, and the first thing they do is announce it. One voice says, "It's too hard." Another sneers, "Who do you think you are?" And just like that, their energy gets punctured. Worse, the moment they share their goal, their brain releases a false dose of dopamine. They feel accomplished, as if they've already won, without shedding a single drop of sweat. But the lone predator? It never speaks. You must become a ghost. No posting your goals. No explaining to family. No searching for partners. This silence creates a physical pressure inside you. When a massive vision is locked inside your chest, with no escape through your mouth, it is forced to convert into motion. It becomes 3 a.m. restlessness. It becomes rage, dragging you back to the table. People will think you disappeared. They'll fabricate stories about your failure. Let them guess. Let their confusion become the shield for your transformation. You don't need a cheering squad. You need an empty room, steel discipline, and the willingness to work like an unknown monster. Drop this in the comments. No support means I own 100% of my kingdom. There is a bitter truth you are forced to confront. Many people will hate you for no reason. You did nothing to them. You stayed silent, handled your work. And yet, your mere presence is enough to drive them insane. Why? Niccolò Machiavelli exposed this nature 500 years ago. Humans are inherently self-serving, unstable, and governed by envy. When a fake, lazy individual stands in front of someone like you, calm, self-contained, unhungry for validation, they don't see you. They see their own weakness. Your independence mocks their dependency. You become a living reminder of everything they failed to become. And the human ego? It cannot handle shame, so it converts shame into hatred. They attack you, isolate you, just to shatter the mirror reflecting their true face. Becoming the villain in the story of the weak is the highest form of praise. This is where you apply the most ruthless principle of Machiavelli. In The Prince, he warned rulers, a man who insists on being good will be destroyed among those who are not. He forces you to abandon naive morality and embrace virtue, a ruthless, adaptive force that bends reality. Society teaches you to move with light energy, love, positivity. But love is fragile. It evaporates the moment hardship arrives. And when you are truly alone, you must learn to run on dark fuel. It is resentment. It is pride. It is cold fury. Do not suppress your anger. When someone mocks your vision, rage is an exceptionally clean fuel. It burns hot, and it doesn't run dry. When you're exhausted at 2 a.m., let that fury remind you, if I quit now, they win. The weak let rejection destroy them, but the architect of power uses rejection as fuel to forge steel. Drop this in the comments. Their envy is my validation. I run on dark fuel. Now, we go deeper into the mechanism that makes you untouchable. Why does the herd fear the lone individual so much? Because society controls people with a single weapon, the threat of isolation. The herd whispers, if you don't comply, you'll be cast out. And 99% of humanity nods just to feel safe. But when they apply that leverage to you, their system short circuits. They threaten, you'll be isolated. You respond, perfect. That's my natural habitat. The moment they realize their greatest punishment is the very thing you crave, they lose all power over you. Niccolò Machiavelli warned rulers with a principle of survival. Never rely on the forces of others. He called them auxiliary forces. If you succeed through someone else's money, platform, or approval, you become their prisoner. You play by their rules. A wise ruler relies only on what he controls. This is exactly why the advice, just go network, is garbage. For you, the herd gathers at events, trading business cards, laughing on command, begging for attention from those with more power. That's not networking. That is begging. And power despises beggars. Instead of asking, Machiavelli forces you to do the opposite. Make yourself indispensable. The lone predator doesn't hand out business cards. You stay home. You lock yourself in. You build a jar of honey. You sharpen your skill until it becomes lethal. You produce results that cannot be denied. And when you become the best, you don't chase bees. They hunt you. The strongest network is not built through begging. It is built through a ruthless portfolio that forces the world to kneel. When you walk into rooms of power, you don't offer your card. They compete to ask for yours. That is the power of conquering success in solitude. Drop this in the comments. I don't beg for connections. I build the honey. There is one final burden you must carry when you choose this path. Temporal displacement. The herd lives in a shallow present. They obsess over tonight's drink, the trending movie, the next purchase. But your mind, it's not there. Your mind has already taken root. 10, 20 years ahead. You are the watchman, standing on the wall, seeing the storm approaching, while the crowd below keeps dancing and calls you delusional. You see the collapse of a bad habit. You see the potential of a system. How can you connect with someone obsessed over who talked behind their back while you're calculating how to build an automated empire? It's like an adult trying to befriend a toddler. You may care for them, you may protect them, but you cannot be their equal. This misalignment creates a massive void of isolation, but that is the price of vision. And then the inevitable happens. When you apply ruthless discipline, when you work in the shadows, when you endure isolation and build something undeniable, they return. The ones who mocked you, the ones who stayed silent when you needed them, the ones who called your dream unrealistic, they show up with bright smiles. They say, "I always knew you'd make it. We're proud of you. Don't forget us." They try to rewrite history, to insert themselves into your story, as if they were there from the beginning. This is the final test, and the most dangerous one. The old version of you, the weak one, the one starving for validation, will want to open its arms and welcome them back. You'll want to prove you're noble. You'll want to enjoy the attention, to soothe old wounds. Don't. Naive tolerance is the fastest way to strip yourself of your crown. This is where you execute Machiavellian grace. You don't get angry. You don't expose them as frauds. Because anger means they still have power over your emotions. You handle them with polite indifference. You become a glass wall. They can see you. They can admire the aura. But they will never touch you again. You smile, nod, but permanently lock the gate to your inner circle because you understand human nature. Their love is conditional. They don't love you. They love the power radiating from you. And you don't get angry about it. You accept it like a law of physics. You look at the empty chair across from you. The herd sees a void that needs to be filled. But you look and realize it's not absence. It's a throne. That throne is reserved for those on your frequency, those who walked through hell alone and never betrayed themselves. Until they appear, the chair remains empty, and you are perfectly at peace with that. Drop this in the comments. The empty chair is my throne. Indifference is my answer. Society is a massive farm, engineered to produce obedient sheep, dependent and terrified of solitude. When you are pushed to the edge of that farm, don't cry. It's because you carry the gene of the wolf, and the collar of the farm doesn't fit you. Now, You sit beyond the fence, looking at the warm lights of the village, wondering why you can't belong. Stop wondering. You don't belong because you were never designed to live in a cage. The path you chose does not offer happiness by the herd's cheap definition. It offers meaning and power. Happiness can be bought with a drink and empty conversations. Power demands sacrifice. Your comfort, your sweat in the dark, and the courage to stand alone against the gravity of the herd. The man who clicked this video 20 minutes ago is gone. From this moment, you are no longer a victim of isolation. You are the architect of it. Guard your silence. Feed the fire of dark fuel. Do not lower your standards for a moment of artificial warmth from those beneath your frequency. The weak version of you found this channel by accident, but the apex predator version of you will choose to stay on purpose. Subscribe. Turn on notifications, because the journey of bending reality from the shadows has just begun. And leave your final oath in the comments. Carve it into your bones. I am the lone predator. Isolation is my kingdom. Now step outside. Put your mask on. Reject distraction, and let your results force the world into silence. See you soon.